Alright, on November 2025. So this is the Combined Science Paper 2, the theory paper which was written this year from the ZIMSEC exam board. So we're going to revise this paper from section B. So the last session we did section A. So today we are going to focus with the section B. So you need to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Always remember to subscribe and to follow us on TikTok. It's Niaki Osteozone. Those doing my sciences, all the science subjects, we got you covered. We have a lot of tutors who specializes in different specialties, so got you covered. So we're going to start with section B, which is number 7. So for section B, we are required to answer 2 questions. So you should take note of these instructions to the candidates. We are required to answer any two questions. So we are going to start with number 7. So number 7 says Fig 7.1 shows the human alimentary canal, the gut system, the GIT system, right? So first you need to appreciate the general anatomy of these systems. So first we have the GIT, we have the CVS, cardiovascular system, we have the respiratory system, and then we are going to have the genital urinary system, right? So first you need to appreciate the general anatomy of these systems, right? So this one is the GIT. So we have this one, the esophagus. This is the esophagus, and then this one is the stomach. This one is the pancreas. This one is the liver, and then within the liver we have what we call the gallbladder, and then this one is the colon, the large intestine. To be more specific, this one is a descending colon. So we have the ascending, we have the transverse, and then this one is the descending colon. We have the sigmoid, the rectum, and lastly we have the anus, right? So you need to have the general appreciation of these structures, and to know the functions, and also to relate the structure to the function. How are the ileum adapted to their function? How is the stomach adapted to its function, right? So this one, so we have the small intestines. So this one is what we call the duodenum, the first part which originates within the pyloric region, the duodenum, and then the middle part of the small intestines is what we call the jejunum, right? And then the terminal part, which is C, is what we call the ileum, right? So you should be able to label these parts of the small intestines. So generally the small intestines, they are 7 meters in length. So you should appreciate this simple anatomy of the GIT system, right? So we go on to dive into the question. So here we don't mainly focus on the given question, but we try to dissect all the concepts within that given radius, so that you can have the understanding of the fundamental principles, right? So we are starting with number A part 1. So the first part says name the part A. So we say that part A is the duodenum, right? And then the next part says name the part B. And then we say that part B is what we call the large intestine or the colon, or you can specify by saying descending colon. It's still the same, right? And then we go on to the next part, which says describe, stating the enzyme involved. We are first required to describe and then to state the enzyme involved in any one digestive process which occurs in C. So first you need to identify C, right? First you must start by identifying C, and then identify the digestive processes and the enzymes involved, right? So C is what we call the ileum, right? We mentioned that C is the ileum, and then in the ileum is where we are going to have the final digestive processes. So we are going to have the digestion. We are going to have the digestion of maltose being broken down into glucose, right? We are also going to have the digestion of peptides being broken down into amino acids. So we are going to have the digestion of lipids broken down into fatty acids and glycerol, right? So you should know the simplest units of these biological biological molecules. So here you are required to give the enzyme involved, right? We are required to give the enzyme involved. For the first reaction, we are going to use the enzyme maltase. So let me highlight in pink. We are going to use the enzyme maltase. And then here we are going to use the enzyme peptidase, right? And then here we are going to use the enzyme lipase. As simple as that. As simple as that, and you are good to go. And then we go on to the next part of the question, which says define the term variation. You are required to define the term variation awarded for 1 mark. So variation is defined as the difference in characteristics or traits among organisms of the same species, right? So it is the difference in characteristics or traits among organisms or individuals of the same species. Same. So you need to take note of this one, same species, right? And then we go on to the next part, which says explain two ways by which the environment can cause variation among organisms. So variation can be caused by diet and climate and surroundings, right? Diet and nutrition, and then climate and surroundings. So we are being awarded for 4 marks. So the first part, the first 2 marks by mentioning or by stating the factors which affect variation. So diet, how does diet affect variation? So diet, the type of food an organism consumes, can affect its growth and health. For example, we are having 2 genetically similar children. They can grow different, they can have different heights. The one who is suffering from malnourishment can have a poor stature compared to one who is well fed, right? So we are going to compare 2 children, one suffering from undernourishment and the one who is well fed. And then we are also going to have climate and temperature. So those who are exposed to sunlight or to intense sunlight, they are going to have darkened skin compared to those who are living where there is cooler temperatures, right? And then we now move on to the next part. The next part says, which is number 8. So the next part is number 8. So Fig 8.1 shows the human heart, the CVS, right? So the trend is well defined. We know this trend, right? So here we have been examined the CVS. The next time we are going to be examined on the G, the respiratory system. The next time the genitourinary system. The next time the alimentary canal. So the trend is well defined, right? So this is the heart. So we are required to name the parts, right? To label the parts. So we are starting with this one is the right atrium, right? So this one is the right atrium. Meaning to say this one is the left atrium. So this one is the right ventricle. This one is the left ventricle. As simple as that. And then we go on to the next part. This one is the tricuspid valve. Tri means 3, right? So we have tri and then we have pi. All right. So this one is what we call the pulmonary valve. And then this one is what we call the aortic valve. And then this one is what we call the mitral valve or the bicuspid valve. So bi means 2. We need to have 2 leaflets here, and then here we need to have 3, right? So there should be another leaflet here, right? So we have named the general structure for the heart. So we want to label this one in such a way we're going to understand, right? So this one is the aorta, right? And then this one is the pulmonary vein. So this is oxygenated blood from the lungs, right? Are we together? And then we go on to this side. You want to label this side. So first you need to understand the right and the left side. So for oxygenated blood, we are using the left side, and then for deoxygenated blood, we are going to use the left side, the right hand side, right? So this one is the pulmonary artery, right? And then this one is what we call the vena cava, right? So you need to understand that this left side is three times thicker compared to this right side. Why? Because this left side is going to pump blood through the aorta to the rest of the body. So we need a lot of pressure to pump the blood through this aorta, right? So you need to take note on that one. So we are going to the next, to the first part. Name the parts labeled A. So we said A is the right atrium, right? And then name the part labeled B. B is the left ventricle. As simple as that. And it is awarded for 2 marks. And then the next part says, describe the function of the tricuspid valve. So the function of the valve, basically we are being examined to know whether you know the functions of these valves, right? So first you need to give the function of the valve, and then to give the function specifically to the tricuspid valve. So the valve prevents backflow of blood, right? The valve prevents the backflow of blood. And then the tricuspid, where is it located? So we want to prevent the backflow of blood from the right atrium into the right ventricle. So we want to prevent the backflow of blood into the right atrium, right? So this is the basic function of the tricuspid valve. And then the next part says, state the function of the heart. So the function of the heart is to pump blood around the body. As simple as that. And then we go on to the next part. So the next part says, state the function of the xylem, the functions of the xylem vessels. So we have 2 types of vessels. We have the xylem vessel, and then we have what we call the phloem vessel, right? So the xylem vessel is used to transport water and mineral salts. From where? From the roots to the rest of the plant. And also they provide what you call structural support. They have what you call lignin, right? For structural support. And we go on to the phloem. So next time we're going to be examined on the phloem, right? So we said we don't mainly focus on the given question. We try to understand any related concept, right? So the phloem are used in what we call translocation. Translocation. So what is translocation? The transportation of sugars, mainly sucrose, and other nutrients made in the leaf during photosynthesis to the parts where they are being stored, right? That's translocation. Are we together, guys? So you should know the functions of the xylem and the functions of the phloem. So we are on part number 2, which says, describe how plants absorb water from the soil. Describe how plants absorb water from the soil. So we are going to understand that water moves by osmosis. So this is the starting point. You need to understand that water moves by osmosis. It moves through the root hair cell, and then it moves down a concentration gradient, right, through a semi-permeable membrane. So these are the key points you need to have when answering this kind of question, right? So first we are going to say that water in the soil enters the root hair cell. The root hair cell. By which process? By osmosis, right? So you want to define osmosis, but in such a way which will suit into this question, right? So you're going to say that the concentration of water in the soil is higher than the concentration of water in the cell shape of the root here, of the root here. So water is going to move from the cell so water moves from the region of high potential to the region of low potential. So water is going to move from the soil into the root vessel, right? So we are going to say that this creates a concentration gradient whereby water moves from the region of high potential to the region of low potential. So once the water is inside the root cell, the water moves from one cell to the other cell by osmosis. So once water is inside the root cell, it moves by osmosis from one cell to another, right? And then eventually into the xylem, where it is transported upwards, right? So the final part is water eventually into the xylem vessels to be transported upwards, right? And then you are done all the 4 marks, right? So the first part, osmosis, root cell, concentration gradient, and then the xylem vessels, and you are good to go, right? So we're going to answer number 9. So I'm going to clear here. So number 9 says define the term biodiversity. Define the term biodiversity for 1 mark. So biodiversity is defined as the variety of plants and animal life in a particular habitat, or ecosystem, right? So you need to know the definition of the term ecosystem. So ecosystem is defined as a community of living organisms interacting with each other in their non-living environment, right? It is defined as the community of living organisms, living at times biotic, interacting with the non-living abiotic environment. This is the definition of ecosystem, right? And then you are good to go. And then the next question says, give 2 advantages of biodiversity. Give 2 advantages of biodiversity. So biodiversity, it provides a greater variety of food sources. So food sources, and we can also use it in the production of medicines, right? The production of drugs. And it also helps to maintain a stable ecosystem which provides essential services like clean air, water, and pollination, right? So it maintains a stable ecosystem. And you're done. And then we go on to the next part. So let me clear this space here. So the next part says, suggest any 1 long-term effects of pesticide use on the environment. 1 long-term use of pesticides on the environment. So pesticides can accumulate in the food chain, thereby poisoning the top predators and disrupting the ecosystem. So they can accumulate in the food chain, what you call bioaccumulation, right? This is what you call bioaccumulation, right? Thereby poisoning the predators of the ecosystem and disrupting the ecosystem, right? And then they can also pollute the water sources, making them toxic to aquatic environment, right? And then the next question says, state 2 effects of malnutrition. State 2 effects of malnutrition. So malnutrition, we are not having adequate amount of nutrients, right? That's malnutrition. So we can have kwashiorkor, where we are going to have a swollen abdomen and a stunted growth caused by the lack of protein deficiency. And then we are going to have scurvy caused by the deficiency of vitamin C, right? And we are also going to have obesity caused by, so malnutrition can be either excess amount or a reduced amount. So the amount of nutrients is not directly proportional to the requirements of the body, right? So we are going to also to have obesity, right? This one is caused by an excess intake of energy-rich foods, leading to increased risk of heart diseases and diabetes, right? And then we go on to the next question. So the next question says, explain two dietary requirements of a pregnant woman. We are required to explain. So first we are going to state and then we explain for us to have the 4 marks. So we are going to have, let me clear the space, right? So we are going to have increased iron, right? And then we are going to have increased proteins. We are also going to have increased calcium, and then we're going to have folic acid. So the next step, we are going to explain the significance of these increments, right? So iron is required in the production of hemoglobin. It is the part of the heme, right? In the mother's blood, in the maternal blood, and then which will then result in the development of the hemoglobin of the fetus. So we are going to have iron for the production of hemoglobin. So a lack of iron will result in anemia. And then for proteins, they are essential in the production or rapid growth of the baby's tissues and the development of organs, what we call organogenesis, right? So it is necessary in organogenesis, right? The formation of organs, right? And then we go on to the calcium. So calcium is required in the formation of bones. And then we are going to have folic acid, which is required to prevent neural tube defects. So this one I don't think it's necessary for combined science. Neural tube. So this is embryology from the anatomical point of view, right? And then we go on to the next part. So we are on section C of the paper, right?